A very good morning, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 9th TCU International e-learning conference 2018, MOOCs and Beyond, right here at the Bangkok International Trade and Exhibition Center of BITEC Bangna. Here comes the opening ceremony. I think that is also special time. I would like to invite Associate Professor Thapani Thammeta, Director of Thailand Cyber University Project, Office of the Higher Education Commission, Ministry of Education, Thailand, to deliver the opening and welcoming address.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Secretary General, Office of the Higher Education Commission, Dr. Supat Champathong, it is a great pleasure to extend to all of you a very warmly welcome to the 9th TCU International Conference, IEC 2018. Since the dramatic arrival of massive open online courses, or MOOC, on the higher education landscape, universities globally have started to grapple with how digital learning functions within their existing mission. Some systems have responded through a significant investment in MOOCs. And new online learning program, MOOCs, have changed education beyond an academic world. While universities are opening up online education to learners worldwide, the corporate institutions and the non-profit world are exploring the benefits of digital training concept for personal, for clients, and for the public at large, in order to harness the advantage of technology based on model of MOOCs. The Office of the Higher Education, OHEC, Ministry of Education, Thailand, has relied on importance of MOOCs to promote higher education and lifelong learning for Thai people to enable them to develop their potential and knowledge. OHEC collaborates with Ministry of Science and Technology, Ministry of Digital Economy and Society, Office of the Civil Service Commission, Digital Economy Promotion Agency, DEPA, Thailand Professional Quality Institution, and University Network, Higher Education Institute in Thailand, to develop the system and courses for Thai MOOCs. Over 180 courses have been created in the first phase and are ready to open access in this year. These MOOCs are available to promote online education in order to serve Thai people at all levels. Office of OHEC, I would like to extend my gratitude to keynote speaker, invited speaker, and from Japan, Malaysia, Netherlands, Republic of Korea, Taiwan, Thailand, and United States of America for your kind contribution. In addition, our gratitude. Thank you to all Thai MOOCs, TCU, University Network, and to the organizing committee for the effort in making the 9th IEC 2018 possible. It will surely provide a great benefit to the educational sphere, and most importantly, I wish to thank all the participants for taking your time to this conference, to join this conference. I sincerely hope that the knowledge and experience that you will gain from this event can be applied to create a benefit to global education. I declare the 9th International E-Learning Conference 2018, MOOCs and Beyond, officially open right now. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much, Associate Professor Thapani Thammeta. Could you please still remain on the stage because we are going to have the photo session. May I invite all keynote speakers and also invited speakers to make your way to the stage, please. Please. I need to use the microphone to invite you, right? Oh, okay. We have another shot, so could you please come down to the floor and then line up? We take another photo. Your face turning to the stage and then your back to the participants, and we will take the picture with the participant as the background. Yes. So everyone will be included in the photo because the cameraman told me that they will use the panorama. So please remain still. So everyone will be included, no one's left out. Okay, I think we are done. So thank you so very much for your kind cooperation. While we are waiting for the technician to install some equipment, I would like to announce that if you have Twitter or IG or Google Photo, you can use the hashtags on your name tag here, and your pictures will be on the screen, the monitor out of this conference room. So this is like a fun way of killing your time, and also look at yourself on the monitor, how good you will become or you are. I would like to introduce our first keynote speaker. He is part of the leadership of the TU Delft Extension School. He is responsible for the production and delivery of open courseware, DelftX, MOOCs, online professional education, and online Bachelor of Science and Master of Science programs. He is also participating in the consortium since 2008, first as an assistant of former President Anka Moder, and since 2013 as board member of the consortium. He also holds a Master of Science in System Engineering, Policy Analysis, and Management of Delft University of Technology. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished participants, please welcome Mr. Willem van Valkenburg from Delft University of Technology, the Netherlands.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone is awake and ready for this. For me, it's still early. For you, it's a regular time. And let me put this on this. See something there? There it is. Thank you for the nice introduction. A little bit, I think for a lot of you are not familiar with Delft University of Technology. Well, too fast. Clicker is, we'll go like this. So I'm from the Netherlands, small country in Europe. And Delft University is one of the old universities there, and it's the biggest university for engineering. So University of Technology. We're a traditional brick and mortar university. So we have a lot of students on campus, one campus, 16 bachelor programs, 30 master programs, in 8 faculties, 1 graduate school, and 24,000 students on one campus, and about 5,000-6,000 staff members or faculty members. Here you see an overview of the programs. It's all in science, engineering, and design. And some of our programs are on top of the lists on all the rankings. Of course, next to education, we do a lot of research, and the last couple of years we focused the research in 4 what's called research initiatives. So focused on energy, Delta's infrastructure and mobility, health, and global. And I think what you will see later on in also our online education, that a lot of is aligned with these programs, and a lot is aligned with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. That's for us an important driver that's something happening here. It's an important driver for a university, a public university, to contribute to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. For the Netherlands, that's important, but also for us as university. And so these research initiatives are really contributing to solving societal challenges, as we keep to say them. So that was a little short introduction of the TU Delft. And then about my talk. we've been doing MOOCs for quite some years. And the last couple of months I've been thinking, hey, what's happening around with MOOCs? What has been the impact of MOOCs? And I'm getting a lot of annoying messages here. You don't see them, but no, go on. So I came up with, go on. I saw this law, Amara's law. We tend to overestimate the impact of a new technology in the short run, but we underestimate it in the long run. And I think that really applies to MOOCs and online education. And I will show you in my keynote examples of this in my own university and some of the outside. And I hope it will help you think about what is the impact of MOOCs. A lot of you will not be familiar with Amara's law, but you probably will know this one, Gartner's hype cycle. And this is actually saying the same thing. First, you overestimate, it gets a hype, but on the end, you get to the plateau of productivity, and it will really change something and have an impact. And that's happening with MOOCs. So today I will talk a little bit about our open and online education program, the impact our program has on our university, the long-term impact, and some of the conclusions there. So we started with MOOCs in 2013, and I'm getting really annoyed by this pop-up of the Wi-Fi. Hope this takes away. We started with that with our MOOCs in 2013, and for our university and for our executive board, that was a reason to really see, hey, can we do more with the MOOCs? And that's where I wrote a proposal together with a couple of colleagues for the TU Delft Open and Online Education Program. As I said in the beginning, TU Delft is a traditional brick-and-mortar university. We were not in online education at all, and but our board recognized that a lot of the trends and things that were happening in education were moving online, so it was important to be there. And our executive boards decided, hey, we don't want to follow, we want to be one of the front runners. That was a strategic decision of them. We helped them to make that decision, but they also gave us the money to start a program. And that was the start of the TU Delft Extension School. The name is, for most of you, probably familiar from the US, where extension schools have been around for a couple of 100 years at some universities, but we're traditional focused on still classroom teaching. Our extension school is fully online. There is no classroom teaching in our extension school. And for us it was important to get faculty commitment and academic leadership. So we got a dean, we call them an e-dean, and a director of education to lead the program. I was one of the managers of the extension school, and the extension school focused on one side on the support of teachers, supporting teachers creating online courses. Most of our teachers have been taught in a classroom. They don't know how to teach online. Most of them have never done an online course. So we really had to help them how to create a high-quality online course. And on the other side, we thought it was important, because it was a new field for us, but also in the world, that we have to do research and innovation. So we actually did a lot of activities also in innovation and in research. And we had different courses we developed. For us, it was just setting this. The university was just the extension school was just the beginning, and these were the original goals we had. So it was about educating the world, but also improving the quality of education, and that's really important for a traditional research university. there is always a lot of focus on research and not a lot of attention to education. And these programs helped us to get more attention to education and the quality of education. If we look at here you see an overview of the MOOCs we developed in the last couple of 5 years now. And we have more than just MOOCs. So first of all, we have OpenCourseWare. We've been doing that since 2007, and that's just publishing the content we use for our campus courses on a public website, ocw.tudelft.nl, and you find all the course materials we use for our campus students online with an open license, and you can reuse them. They're all on both bachelor and master level. There is no interaction with faculty, and you can't get any certificate. Then we had our MOOCs. Those are really complete online courses, but focused on massive numbers of students. So there's no individual contact between a teacher and a student, but students do receive feedback, but mostly from each other, from their peers, or the teacher addresses the whole group. When we started, all the MOOCs were on bachelor level. Now we see a much bigger variety. So we actually have a MOOC that's teaching students to programming in Scratch for 8-year-old students, pupils. But we also have a MOOC about topology of condensed matter, and that's more for PhD students. So there's much more variety than we started with our MOOCs. And go away. Then after a while we saw the MOOCs, but we also got a lot of interest from professionals. And so we developed what we called ProfEds, professional education courses, fully online. And those are paid enrollments, so you only get access to the course when you have paid. There are not big numbers of students, from like 20 to a couple of hundred students in the course. And you get a course certificate and continuous education units that a lot of people need for their professional life. And the last category is the online academic courses. Those are the online variants of existing campus courses. So those are part of a master program, are fully accredited, and you get also accredited course certificates, and it can lead up to a full master degree. We currently don't offer a full master degree, but it can be part of it. For us, it was really important that we used all these online activities in our campus courses in a blended way. So in that way we were developing courses for the outside world, but we're actually also changing the university campus courses as well. And that was a really important combination. That was one of the reasons why our executive board was willing to give us money, because we were also changing the campus education. So if you look at the short-term impact of our program, we have nice numbers, and we have created 88 MOOCs, 35 professional education courses, 25 online courses, about 200 OCW courses, and we have done about 25 blended projects. And we had 2 million enrollments in our MOOCs, 1,800 enrollments in our ProfEds, and we won a couple of awards. And that has been really great for the program, but that's just during running of the program. It's still important. It really helped, especially the awards really is important for teachers to receive awards. So we actively have been participating in awards procedures to get awards for our teachers, because that gives them the extra recognition for the extra effort they did in online courses. I think 2 years ago we reached the 1 million milestone of enrollments in our MOOCs, and we made a small video there, and I thought interesting to show, although we're now at 2 million this summer. It gives a nice impression of what we do within our courses. What you see in this video is also what we want to do on campus, and that's active learning. We don't want students just to watch a video, but really be active in the course, contribute to the course, and participate and create. And I think especially also in the engineering and the design, really to understand that you have to do something. You can't just listen to a movie. You have to be active and discuss, create, and that's important. And we do that on campus, but we also want to do that online. If we look at our MOOCs, and here you see a little overview of the enrollment numbers, what you see is there's a very long tail of courses. So we have a couple of blockbuster courses, especially solar energy. Is really successful. It's also the biggest run we had. It's now up above 70,000 enrollments. And what we see, you have a couple of really popular courses that are attracting a lot of the learners, and then a very long tail with MOOCs. The long tail still means at least 1,000 enrollments. Our average I think in 2017 of our MOOCs was about 5,000 to 6,000 enrollments. That's still a massive number of students. When we started I think in 2014, that number was more I think 15,000. So you see the number is going down. And that's because there's much more competition going on. There are many more MOOCs available now to choose. So, and that's also, in the beginning we created a lot of MOOCs, and now we're slowing down because what does one extra MOOC contribute to your program? And that's an important question, and that's sometimes very painful for professors to say, yeah, but your MOOC is interesting, but we're not going to make it. You're not getting funding from us because it doesn't contribute to our program, and there are already 3 similar MOOCs with the same topic. So why should we invest in your MOOC? And that's not an easy discussion because they all think they're unique and the best and all things like that. I see a lot of smiles there. People recognize that. What we've seen is that if you're the first MOOC on a certain topic, that's crucial. If that can mean you can pick the whole topic, and you will also, if you're doing a good job, a lot of other universities will not publish their MOOC on that topic. So we've seen that with solar energy. It was our first MOOC we introduced in 2013. And still, I think there are only a couple of other MOOCs on solar energy. And we introduced our MicroMaster programs on solar energy, and we're still getting a lot of enrollments in our solar energy program. And everyone is saying, Delft is leading that topic. And that's not just important for our education, but even more important for our research. So our professors are asked all around the world to participate in project because he is the solar energy MOOC king. We're going to the long-term impact. What I see, I recognize 5 different impacts. So from courses to programs to credits, from a national to a global world of education, from initial education to continuous education, from a traditional lecture room to blended learning, and towards open education. I will go through them this morning. Is it possible to get some water up here? Some water? Thank you. So, from courses to programs to credits. So when we started, we had those MOOCs. And we used a tender system, so any teacher, professor could submit a proposal to make a MOOC. And if we thought it was interesting enough and he had a good proposal, a good course team, he received funding to make the MOOC. He received our support. He could use the studio facilities. So that was interesting for him. And we are the gatekeeper to publishing a MOOC on the edX platform where we publish all our MOOCs. What we started to notice, hey, we see some trends in these courses. So we started we created portfolio themes. And these are the themes we defined. Aerospace engineering, affordable and clean energy, responsible leadership of technology, data analysis and programming, design and architecture, and so on. And actually, when we looked at it, and here's your graphical, is that some of those topics really aligned with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And that's, as I said in the beginning, important for our university. So the affordable and clean energy is a big part of our initiatives, and that aligns with the UN Sustainable Goal number 7. And same with sustainable cities, is aligned with number 11 of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So we're really making visible that we are contributing to the UN goals, and it really helped to recognize our courses. And actually, nowadays, when a teacher wants to do a MOOC, they have to show how they are contributing to one of these themes. So they can't do a course that is outside one of those. They have to contribute to one of those themes. And the next thing what we did is we start to organize our MOOCs in what we call short learning programs. And we've followed the initiatives of edX on this site. So first they started with the X series, and those were a couple of courses, at least 3, understanding specific topic through a series of courses. It was very loosely connected. There was not much of an integration. It's just 3 courses that are on the same topic and not too much doubling. Then we had the professional certificate programs. I think those are really the interesting ones. Those are really focusing on professionals. What is there in there for them to gain skill or knowledge about a specific topic in their field? There has to be at least 2 courses. Actually, they're our most successful programs we have. And then the last one is the MicroMaster program. It's something that edX introduced, I think, 2 years ago. MIT at the first one on supply chain management. And we introduced a MicroMaster program on solar energy engineering. And the interesting aspect of a MicroMaster that makes it also complex and difficult is that on one side it is a product on itself for a professional. On the other side, if you pass the MicroMaster and you get admitted to the master program at lines with, you get a waiver for the courses you participated in. And that makes it difficult because, at least for our university, all our masters are research masters. But professionals are not really looking for another research master. Most of them already done that. So that makes it a little bit difficult program, and especially because it has to be what we call 15 European credit systems, and that's a quite heavy program. So that means the study load per week had to be really high for those courses. And all our data showed we shouldn't do that, but we wanted to see how this experiment works. And actually the courses are really popular. A lot of enrollments we have in those courses, but there are not a lot of students that complete the program. And I think that you see that on almost all the MicroMaster programs that are, at least in the European MicroMaster programs, I have to say that. So here you see an overview of our professional certificate programs, MicroMaster and X Series. If you look at our professional certificate programs, one we actually was originally started as an X Series was the data analysis and visualization with the Excel. Together with a university in Argentina, we translated that program to Spanish to make it available also in the Spanish world. And actually one of the latest programs we added was electrical cars, and that's our most successful professional certificate program that's really attracting a lot of people, and also with very high numbers of people that want a certificate. And that's making some money for the university. And the latest one we introduced like 2 weeks ago, is the Leadership Essentials for Engineering. So if you look at the credits we give, we have the continuous education units. Those are credits for professionals. In a lot of fields that they use those. We have the MicroMaster. Actually that is when you pass the MicroMaster, get admitted to the master program, you will get a waiver for those courses. So you don't get direct credits for it, but it leads to credits. And then we have actually what we call credits for MOOCs programs. And that is really giving credits to MOOCs for our own students. And the idea we had is, hey, there are so many MOOCs out there. Isn't possible for our own students to give to get credit for our MOOCs, because that can enrich their portfolio, can enrich their programs, and can we cooperate with other universities on this topic? So the whole concept is based on trust. So if you give credit to your own students for a specific MOOC, then the other universities will do the same thing without checking that separately. We do, because we're all universities that have to deal with exam committees, for all the MOOCs we have an additional exam that's happening on the campus where the student is. And we're doing that with these universities. We started out with a couple of universities on the edX platform. For example, Adelaide, the Australian National University, and APFL, Rice University. That's where we started, and now we broaden it and also got another European universities around. And it's really interesting to see because we have universities that are all different educational systems, and that usually makes it already almost impossible to cooperate because your academic calendar is not aligned, rules and regulations are completely different, and my colleagues put in a lot of effort to get this working, and it is actually working. So a lot of our students are doing now a course on astrophysics at the Australian National University, for example. We don't offer that course ourselves, so now they can do that course online. And the other way around, so it is getting more and more popular for our students. Currently, it is only for what we call elective courses. So it's not part of the core curriculum of the program, because that's too sensitive for a lot of committees in the university. So we started out on the outside, the outskirts, honors program, elective courses, and then we're slowly moving in. They don't know that yet, but we'll get there. So traditional education has been a national market, at least in Europe, although we have the European Union. Within the European Union, it's still a national rules and regulations for education. And what we see with the MOOCs, that the internationalization of education speeded up. If I look at our own universities, you see that in our bachelor program, 7% is international, mostly Belgium students, because most of the programs are in Dutch. In our master programs, already 1/3 is international. In our PhD programs, 2/3 is international. In our online paid education, it's 75%. And in our MOOCs, it's 97% is international. Only 3% of our MOOC learners are Dutch. And we see those numbers going up, more and more international students. And actually, a lot of MOOC participants apply to do a master program at our university. Last year, it was about 12% of our international master students first participated in a MOOC before they applied to our program. So it's actually, the MOOCs are generating a lot of traffic to our campus. And that's good. It means we can select the best students. And we have some data about what they've done in the MOOCs. We also see that our MOOCs are used in other classes around the world. So here are some examples, and that's important for us. All our MOOCs are shared with an open license, so any university can use the content of our MOOCs and use it in their classes. And a lot of them have done that. Here are some examples, but there are many more. And some tell us, and some even want to pay us for it. And that's always good, but we do allow you to use our content for free, because we think it's important to share our content, and the content is already paid for by the government. We are we're a public university, so it's already paid for, so we should share our content. And what you see is that we get a lot of feedback back from those schools that are using our content. And actually that helps us to improve our courses, to make them better. And so in that way it also leads to better quality of our courses. So the next trend I see is from initial education to continuous education. When we started out with MOOCs, there was the idea of educating the world, and everyone could access them. But if you look at the MOOC data and see who is doing the MOOCs, it's actually typically, and on average, about a 28, 29-year-old professional that already done a master and or a bachelor program. So they already received education. That was not originally the thought we had when we started with MOOCs, but that's what's happening. And that's also what we've seen interest of companies in, that a lot of companies are saying, yeah, our young employees, they want to do MOOCs for their continuous education. And they say, well, we don't know how to do that. So can you help with that? And so actually, we have created quite some courses together with companies, and some are available as a MOOC. So they actually paid for the development, and we can offer the MOOCs on that X platform, and their own staff can participate in the MOOCs for free. Some created a MOOC, and then we created like a blended course for them in their company. And they're all different kinds of models we've done with them, and they are seeing that this is the way forward. And it saves a lot of travel time for their staff, and a lot of their young employees get really enthusiastic about this, and a lot of them have already experience with creating a MOOC. This is for us a really interesting cooperation, because traditionally we have a lot of collaboration with industry for research, not a lot with education. Our alumni will go to all those companies, but they traditionally don't come back to us for continuous education. And now we have a way to continue to help our alumni and to continue to educate, to really be the lifelong learner that they're supposed to be. And we're now in discussion with like the big Dutch companies like Shell, Unilever, but also with international companies, Deloitte, McKinsey. Those are all companies we're working and developing courses together with. And actually, we had a couple of alumni that came to us. We want to make a course about leaderships for engineers. All right, we can talk about that. We have a professor that's interested in who's doing courses on that. Can we work together? And actually, so alumni are helping us create those courses, making them the best we can, but also making sure they align what the professionals need, because that's not something we are traditionally very good at as a university. We know how to educate our 18-year-old pupils, but really about how to create a course for professionals is not something that we are really an expert in. I'm losing my mouse. Here it is. Then going to the campus. I think this image is familiar for a lot of you. You see a traditional classroom with a big hall like we have here, and everyone with his laptop on his knees. And I think that's not the best way to teach. And our university has said in our what we call vision on education that we want to go to a mix of online and on-campus education, because that's got the benefits of both of them. You can do a lot of teaching much better online, but you need the campus interaction between students with teachers, and that continues to be important. But the room I showed here is not the best room to do that. This room doesn't lead to a lot of interaction. So actually what we started to do is develop what we call what kind of activities do we want to do in classrooms, and what kind of classrooms do we need for that. And here you see some examples. So we have just frontal teaching, a mixed practice, collaboration, testing as some of the examples. And then you lead up, how big should those rooms be? And we developed what we call a cookbook for educational spaces. So every time we are developing new classrooms or refitting existing classroom, we'll follow this cookbook in how to optimize these rooms for blended learning. So actually, in a couple of weeks, we're opening a new building, and it only has rooms that are suitable for blended learning. That's all the rooms, because we have enough of those big hall rooms. We need rooms for blended learning. And that's really, you see how this development of online education is really changing what's happening on campus. Because we are not really yet familiar with all the aspects of blended learning, we actually are doing a European-funded project with 6 universities on what we call European maturity model for blended learning. So can we now say how far a university or a course is aligned with, is suitable for blended learning? We're doing that on 3 levels. On course level, so how is your course designed? On strategic level, so how are the procedures in your university? How are the educational spaces? How's the support arranged? And then on a governmental policy, what governmental rules are there? In some countries, teachers are getting paid on the amount of hours they spend in a classroom. If you start with blended learning, it will cut their income. So they don't like that. That is an example of what has to be changed. So we're currently in development of this project. It started last year and will continue for another 2 years. We're doing that with KU Leuven, with the University of Edinburgh, the City University of Dublin, and Aarhus University, and a Finnish university, I always forget the name of, Tampere University of Applied Science. And it's coordinated with the European Association of Distance and Teaching Universities. So, and then the last trend, and that's towards open education. A little bit back for people who are not familiar with open education. This is the nice definition. I think what's really important with open education is that open is not just free. What we've seen in a lot of MOOCs, they're free for participants to enroll, but that's not really open education. Open education means it's free plus permissions to reuse it. And those permissions are these. So you're allowed to retain it, reuse it, revise it, remix it, and redistribute it. And a lot of online platforms are prohibiting this kind of reuse. And beginning of this year, our university presented our new strategic framework, and openness is actually one of the core principles in our strategic framework. And what we've been working on for many years, and now it is officially in the policy of the university, is that open education, but also open science, open access, is really important for the strategy of the university. It's one of the drivers of our university, and I'm really proud that my university is putting this so prominent in our strategy. And one of the examples I think of open education is what we see in the localization of MOOCs. And that's because the MOOCs are open, and we publish them all also with an open license, so anyone can reuse them. Is that what we see is that other institute initiatives are starting to use our MOOCs and are translating, localizing the MOOCs for our own country. So here's some examples. Kinok is in Vietnam, Asuka Academy is in Japan, Edrak is in Jordan, and Xiaitang X is in China. And they're all using our MOOC and are localizing them to fit their needs. So I've got an example here of the Kinok platform. It's a Vietnamese non-profit organization. It's just a couple of young Vietnamese people with a passion for education. It really was fun talking with them. And they want to make world-class education accessible for Vietnamese, because a lot of Vietnamese don't speak English. And so they selected a couple of our MOOCs, and the translation was done with crowdsourcing, with the help of hundreds of volunteers. And I think that's a really strong model how you can use open education to improve education in your country, in your language. And that's also where the Open Education Consortium is facilitating and helping a lot of institutes around the world. Currently we have about 240 members from 44 countries in 29 languages, working together and sharing their expertise and their knowledge and helping each other in moving open education forward. And I'm vice president of the board, so that I have to say that, of course. So going to the conclusions, I thought yesterday we visited the floating market, and I thought, hey, this image gives a good illustration. It looks like chaos, but actually it's all moving in the same direction, and it doesn't happen. Not a lot of accidents happen. It's actually more organized than you think, and I think that's also the world of MOOCs. It looks like a chaos when you start looking at it, but I start to see trends, and I illustrated those trends here today. So these are the trends I see. And when I get back to Amar's law, I think we see that we overestimate the impact of a new technology in the short run, but underestimate it in the long run. So MOOCs might disappear, but they have had a very big effect on universities, at least on my university, and I see that more broadly around the world. So thank you very much, and we have a couple of minutes for questions, I think. So.
If you have any questions, we have the microphone provided for you. And please, maybe it's too early to ask questions. Yes, we have. Over there, sir.
Good morning. Thank you very much for this very illuminating talk. I have two questions. Number one is, what is the male-female ratio of the instructors or course developers? And secondly, when we have collaboration with you, what is the cost implied? How much would you charge us if we would be your partner, or would it be free? Thank you very much.
So first, the gender. Traditionally, our university is engineering school. So that means traditionally we have mostly male faculty. We try to have in all the course teams also some females around, because we think that is important. So like one of our first MOOCs we did on water management, there were 2 professors, but actually we added 2 associate professors to it that are 2 females, so we had a more balanced course team. Not in all courses that is possible, I must say. If I look at my support team, it's most females. Yeah, that's happened to be, I try to select the best people I can get, and that happened to be females, and I don't know why, but I'm very happy with them. They supported the teachers, and that helps. The second question, if you want to partner with us, it depends on the partnership, what you want to do. So a lot of our content is free to use. It's open license. You can use it with any cost. But we also have different other models depending on what kind of collaboration you're looking for. So we can discuss that. I see a question there.
Yes, good morning. Thank you for your comments. I have a question about working with for-profit educational organizations. Do you have a particular policy about doing so or not doing so?
That's an interesting question. So when we were thinking about joining a MOOC platform, we had a lot of discussions about what platform to join. We had offers from both Coursera and edX, and what for us was the final, what made for us the most important thing was that edX was a non-for-profit and is more, we as a university have much more influence in what's happening in the edX consortium than if you go for a for-profit. We tend to have more interest in non-profits, but of course, as a university, we work with a lot of different organizations. I think the most important is what's your mission of the organization you're working with, and does it align with the missions we have as a university and our values.
Hi, my question's about open license and localization. Okay.
It's working.
Right. So in my understanding, open licensing means that anybody can repurpose your course as well. If that's the case, how do you monitor that your course content is actually true to the original content? Maybe it's not so much related to science, but in social science, each country has different political climate, and sometimes when you translate something, meaning gets lost in the translation. So how do you monitor that the content that you produce is properly localized in different countries?
So we've had different models to do that. So first of all, it's an open license, so anyone can use it without us telling us about it, and that's fine with us. There are some institutes that come to us and want to reuse our content, and a couple of times we've done that with EdRAC, people in the Arabic world. We actually what we use a surrogate professor. So we actually got, this case, it was a former PhD student who got his PhD from Delft, and he was teaching at an Arabic university, and he was actually like teaching that MOOC and creating extra content to not only translate it, but really localize it to the situation in the Arabic world. And what's interesting, we got a lot of feedback from that and used that to improve our original MOOC to make it more with a broader perspective. Because traditional, of course, our perspective is the Western world. We try to be more open, but not everything we know. So that really helps, that input from those countries to make our courses better. Yeah.
No more question? Oh, we have one question.
There. Yeah.
Just wondering about the situation of the education system in your country. Seems like MOOC is the way to go, but just wondering about some other universities where they are not adapted to using MOOC. How are they performing right now? Just could you please give us some overview? Thank you very much.
So when we started with our MOOCs, we got a couple of enthusiastic teachers, young teachers that thought, hey, online, that's interesting. And we got them to participate, to create the first MOOCs. And that created so much enthusiasm that others wanted to follow. And it also generated so much attention that our government got interested. Hey, what's happening here? And they got to talk with us. And they tried to change the rules so that we could do what we wanted to do. A couple of times we were doing things that were against the law, but our Ministry of Education said, you're allowed to do that because it's an interesting experiment. That was the benefit of being the first, and actually they changed some of the rules and regulations, and now actually the government is doing, has a grant program for online education. And that was because we just did it and didn't, we asked for permission afterwards, and then that sometimes is needed.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I think that wraps up your interesting talk about the long-run impact of MOOCs by Professor William van Kenburg, the Vice President of the Board, Delft University of Technology, Open Education Consortium, the Netherlands. I also really like the statement, which is very inspiring. We educate the world by sharing knowledge, connecting people from around the world. This is very nice. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
So according to the schedule, we are supposed to have 15 minutes break. So could you please come back, resume to your seat at 10:30. Thank you.
We forgot.
May I have your attention, please? Our next section will commence very shortly, so if you have finished the refreshment outside, please resume to your seat. Thank you.
So you're not going to hear me. There we go. The mic was on mute. Test 1, 2. I got it. I'll put it right here. Okay. Say something again. Testing 1, 2, 3. This is a test. Testing the microphone. Good. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. No popping. Can you take me down? Oh, not music. Okay. Right.
So welcome back to the second half of today's morning session. Our next keynote speaker, he is the Associate Vice Provost, Stanford University, Office of the Vice Provost for Teaching and Learning. He has spent 29 years in various roles at Stanford and currently directs a portfolio of over 250 graduate and professional courses annually to industry. He has been instrumental in developing and implementing an international portfolio which includes Singapore, China, India, Korea, Malaysia, Brazil, United Arab Emirates, and in numerous European countries, including France, Germany, Denmark, and Sweden. In 2013, he launched a joint online non-credit certificate program between the School of Engineering and Graduate School of Business, the Stanford Innovation and Entrepreneurship Certificate. This is the first formal online education cooperation between the schools. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Paul Marker.
Well, good morning again. I hope your break was satisfactory. You've got a little bit of food in you now. You're ready to listen or fall asleep, depending upon how much energy I bring. I want to thank Kun Tapani for bringing me here. We actually have, thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here and share a few things, perspectives from Stanford University. And what I would like to focus on my talk mostly is about the Beyond portion of the title. Stanford was one of the first to deliver on massively open and online courses in 2011, and so we have some history there. I'll share a little bit of that, but I hope to challenge you around the strategy and perspectives that your universities should be thinking about. I do have to share one of the reasons we're back in Thailand. This is my 5th visit to Thailand, and we have, with our partner SCAC, and Kun Pupe is here to share some perspective if you want to meet her in the hallways. We have developed an executive education program, first of all, focused on innovation and entrepreneurship. Really, we're building capacity in the leaders of those who participate in our programs. And we know that capacity building in Thailand, resilience and perspective is really important. Those executives saw that there's great opportunity to work with Stanford to scale this innovation and entrepreneurship content, and that's where SCAC comes in. We have great content. Our partner SCAC has context, a local context. And combining those two, we have found in our programs around the globe, is really important. And so we're delivering that. That has led to a research opportunity focused on Thailand 4.0. We've been excited and delighted to learn about that initiative. And our faculty now will be coming back to Thailand to focus on research first and executive education second. So that's how we have been here. We've been thrilled to get to know many of the companies. We met with the government officials over the last 2 days. So I'll bring some of that perspective to my talk as well. So I begin with this photograph here. Well, actually, this agenda. Here's what I plan to do over the next 40 minutes or so. Give you some context. Talk about the past, especially the Stanford story. Provide some updates on the present, what's happening now. And also share some thoughts about the future and make some bold predictions. In some of them, I hope I'm wrong, but others I will welcome your input and thoughts. So a little bit about the context. So I recently took this photograph here in Thailand, in fact, and many of you are smiling. You probably recognize this, right? Does this need disrupting? What do you think? Is there an opportunity here? It's sort of obvious, right? You can imagine the carriers who have to figure out which line is bad. Just think about that effort, right? How about this? This is my alma mater, the place that I love, the place that I've spent nearly now 30 years. Thank you for that introduction. I actually think this needs more disrupting than the lines that you saw, and hopefully I'll share why I think that's the case. Even though it's clean and pristine, there's lots of work that we can do as educators to think about extending and expanding our activities. I think Willem hit it right on the head. At Stanford, we believe we have an obligation to do this. given our position in the Silicon Valley and the great benefit that we have. So that's in part why we're here in Thailand, we've been in China, and so on. So with those framing thoughts, one of the things that I've felt, and maybe you feel it as well, things are moving really fast these days. Oh my goodness. There are courses all over the place. I did some work and I pulled some statistics which I thought were interesting to demonstrate the speed of change these days. 127 new devices are connected to the internet every second, collecting data often, either from systems or from us as individuals, as consumers, as people who just get on the bus. They know where we are and how we got on and how frequently and so on. Lots of systems connecting to the internet and enabling technology. 375 million workers, and this is some content taken from BCG and McKinsey study. 375 million workers over the next decade or more will be displaced by automation. Now, in some cases, that's great news. Manual labor is difficult, and if we can use robots to be more efficient, that would be terrific. It's a great opportunity for us as universities to provide ongoing and continuous education, that lifelong learning that Willem mentioned. It is also a huge risk, I would say. Imagine if you had that many people who did not have a job, could not provide for their family, and then become sort of frustrated and angry with the system, right? That's the big risk that I see. We need to, as universities, think about this and how do we mitigate, help provide a portion of the solution to mitigate or reduce this risk. A third of our jobs will be done in part by automation, and the example I use is my marketing person. Our center delivers curriculum to many people across the globe, and what we do is we track those people through their progress. 10 years ago, we would say, we know that you have completed 2 courses. We'd have to pull manually from our database and have somebody manually send you an email, say, sign up for the 3rd course so you can finish your certificate in data mining. Today we do that automatically using an automated drip campaign system called Marketo, a Stanford-founded startup that was just acquired. And that system allows her, as a marketing professional, to do other things, more high-value things than pulling lists and managing manually the distribution of that content. Thinking more strategically, 90% of the CEOs expect disruption to occur in their companies. And here's the bad news. 70% of those same CEOs say their employees are not ready. Again, another great opportunity to provide, for example, the content that we do in innovation and entrepreneurship, which starts to deliver perspectives on resilience. I would also mention that the turbulence is increasing. If your company was founded before 1940, you had a pretty good chance of living for 90 years. If your company is founded in the last decade, it's very likely you'll be out of business in 10. You'll be acquired or you'll be done because of the competition is so fierce. The cycles of change are increasing. On a personal note, I had one boss for 23 years, and I've had 7 bosses in the last 7 years. So we have to start building the arguments. We have to be very nimble and on our feet. You'll notice I'm walking to try to keep things moving. I've been able to duck and jive, and so far we're good. But there's a lot of work that is implied here as well to try to provide perspective on the work that we're doing, especially for me in extended education. If you don't believe me, just think about what's happening outside the university environment. The largest hotel chain, Airbnb, has no buildings. They have no infrastructure, no costs, no overhead associated with this. They're simply playing matchmaker between people who have open spaces around the globe and people who want to go and avail themselves of those great locations. They're also collecting inordinate amounts of data on us. That platform allows them to see what searches in what countries and what areas are of interest. So who needs a hotel room anymore? Airbnb is much more convenient. The largest music distributor, You could call it Apple, it's Spotify. They don't actually manage any recording artists. They don't have to deal with recording studios and the artist hassle, the sort of attitude that comes with being famous, right? They simply capture what the record companies are doing, those producers, and they give it to us. Apple Computer provides 70% of the revenue back to the record companies, and they don't have to do a thing. They keep 30% of the revenue. Who has the data, though? Apple Computer knows the trends, knows what people are searching on, and so on. So if we leverage these external platforms, we risk losing the insight that we might be able to gather. The largest retailer, Taobao, or Amazon, depending upon your perspective, has no physical presence. They simply matchmake between those who have goods and those who want goods, and they do it extremely efficiently with delivery. And you can imagine very soon, especially with Willem's graphic about the global distribution, who the heck needs a building called a campus anymore? How many of you actually are on a physical campus and connect with colleagues? Raise your hand. How many of you are in the education business, and I call it a business by design? How many of you in the education business? Raise your hand. Okay, I got 3 people. Help me out here, folks. So, as I understand it, a lot of us are in the education business, right? Maybe you're too shy to raise your hand. It's a fairly provocative question. What on earth do you need? So, Stanford University extends our content not just to industry, which we do very well, but we also enable students to go overseas, and they never have to show up to class because we can extend the content. So could you imagine if you can do 1 year's worth of online education and never having stepped foot on the Stanford campus, why on earth would you need to be there? I think this starts to illustrate the point. Universities, administrators, faculty need to think about the value that they're bringing and contributing to those people who do show up to the physical campus. They also need to consider the audience outbound, which may be, very soon, many more than those who are on the physical campus. As an example, Stanford University serves 16,000 students a year. Our program enrolls 25,000 paid enrollments, and we have to date serviced 6 million people online through our MOOCs since 2012. Far more than the physical Stanford campus can provide or actually want to deal with. So this notion of a campus is something that we need to consider. I give you some perspective on the past. Here is one of the first and oldest active university. Universities were constructed as for place-based education. It's a place that you would go. It would house the very valuable books. And it would give, especially in the early days, a focus around religion and perspective. And here we have one of the first universities founded, interestingly, by a woman, which is always great to bring that diversity and perspective. But this place-based education is changing, I would argue. This guy here, does anybody know who this guy is? Raise your hand if you, maybe it's just a couple of Silicon Valley folks. This guy's name is Frederick Terman. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on the Frederick Terman story. I love stories. Just to give you some perspective on what he was able to do for Stanford University, moving us from a good regional university to a great international university. And there's some really important lessons here. So he arrived on Stanford's campus in 1925. He was an engineering professor, a radio engineering professor, and he wrote a seminal book in this space. When World War II broke out, he decided to give back to his country. So he went to the Department of Defense on the East Coast and provided some perspective on this radio engineering, how you could jam the enemy signals from those bombers that would come in and so on and so forth. Based on that experience, he came back to the School of Engineering at Stanford and became one of the very first deans in the School of Engineering, the third dean, in fact. Frederick Terman, based on his Department of Defense experience, then was able to leverage that network to bring to Stanford research funding. That was really important. This was one of the first times that government research funding had come back to Stanford. What did that do? You can imagine. Research funding, faculty love to do research and have it funded, right, even today. That attracted great students. So suddenly, that funding generated the activity and the creation of Stanford as a center, as a magnet for some of the great faculty and also for some of the great students. He also famously sponsored 2 students, a guy by the name of William Hewlett and a guy by the name of David Packard of Hewlett and Packard, right? That was the famous story that you all have heard of. I'm going to come back to that connection, but very soon what he did in partnership with them and 3 other companies, Terman started to realize that engineers, especially engineers, needed to be constantly educated. Today, a computer science engineer is obsolete in 3 years. If you're not constantly getting educated in an engineering discipline, then you will be behind. And so Terman saw this and wanted to help his friends and the companies in the Silicon Valley. So he started to create graduate degrees, non-degree certificates, and focus his attention on connecting Stanford and industry. So he created a government connection by the funding. He's now creating and reaching out to industry as he was the second provost at Stanford University. So that's the Terman story. I love this quote here. He talked about the Silicon Valley. There wasn't much there. It was a bunch of fruit orchards, right? And after he exited, the world wanted to come to the Silicon Valley. I want to take this quote a step further. I think now the Silicon Valley has an obligation to go to the world. And we have a great means of doing this, which is online education. So our center, the center is really charged to educate a global community. We do that by leveraging our Stanford faculty content. We also partner and engage industry experts to develop our portfolio. We have, as was mentioned, 200 graduate courses a year. We deliver 50 to 60 professional courses, and we also work with governments, the UAE, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the government of Malaysia, the government of Thailand, and so on, to think about the challenges that they have and explore ways that we can invigorate the community, especially around innovation and entrepreneurship. This timeline is really interesting. There's been a lot of talk about dates and so on and who did what first. I just want to share with you the Stanford story. I had been in this organization for my entire professional life, so I can say that these dates are reasonably accurate. In 1954, I mentioned Terman's connection with industry. We created an Honors Cooperative Program, HCP program. Now, Stanford was founded in 1891. So, roughly the half-life of the university, we created this strong education connection with industry. Based on that the students would come to Stanford's campus. They would drive in. The traffic wasn't as bad as it is today. But they would come to campus and rub shoulders with the students there and take master's degrees and, in some cases, PhDs as well. In 1969, the School of Engineering builds a television network. That was the genesis of our center, the Instructional Television Network. So now students didn't have to drive to Stanford. We could broadcast the signals to them, and we had an innovative two-way talkback system. So we'd get questions from industry students for those who participated. It was really cool. In fact, we're trying to get a project that will reinvigorate that using likely Zoom as the technology. So that was 1969. In 1995, my first boss, Dr. Andy DiPaolo, founded the Stanford Center for Professional Development to allow us to grow our activities, not just graduate education, not just delivered with the instructional television network, but rather a flexible approach. Soon thereafter, we worked with a couple of technology and a couple of pilots to deliver the first online master's degree in engineering education. We've been at this for a long time. MOOCs were invented in 2008 or something, 2011, depending upon your dates that you like. We've been at the online master's degree for longer than most. We learned a lot. We offered, based on our ability to deliver online content, I said, let's develop professional programs of the sort that Willem talked about and deliver an advanced project management program, which we just closed down after roughly 20 years. The faculty member retired. But this program allowed us to partner with an industry group, work with our faculty to extend and expand the great work that they were doing and deliver a professional certificate, all in 1999 and 2000. We think that that's the first online blended professional certificate that we know of. And if you know of anyone that came earlier, let me know and I'll change that. So we did Stanford Engineering Everywhere in 2007. We were using Creative Commons. We had a grant from a venture capital company. It was $500,000. We built 10 courses, fully scalable with Creative Commons, homeworks, assignments. Anybody in the world could download this, and we had about 1.9 million hits and downloads. It wasn't sustainable, though. That's a big number. $500,000 for 10 courses. It's probably about average in terms of the cost. But I think the point is that we proved success, we declared victory, and we said, can't do any more of that. It's too expensive. It's not sustainable. We did in 2011 with Sebastian Trun, Jennifer Whittam, and of course the famous Andrew Ng. How many have heard of Andrew Ng? Okay, well, I got 4 people. 4? Y'all should get on and look at Coursera. He was the founder of Coursera. He has the most famous course there in artificial intelligence. Anyway, enough about that. But we are at a MOOC conference here, right? Okay. So he was, the 3 of them delivered the first Stanford MOOCs, and we had 350,000 enrollments, and tens of thousands completed that. It was Stanford-level content. So it makes sense that you have such a drop-off in the enrollments. It was relatively difficult. They took a graduate course and they reduced the intensity by a little bit, but it was difficult. So tens of thousands completed. I mentioned our 25,000 enrollments in 2015. And at 2016, I think it was really important, based on our MOOC experience and a number of activities, as Willem suggested, the university took a step back and we created in 2012 the Vice Provost for Online Learning. And then in 2015, the Vice Provost for Teaching and Learning, Office of the Vice Provost for Teaching and Learning, where I currently sit. And that unit was designed to think about how Stanford could build a strategy around this online learning, not only to benefit the extended learner, that person outside of the campus, but also that person, the faculty members inside of the campus, who might want to take advantage of the new technology. And also benefit the students to give them flexibility to go overseas. So that's the way that we developed this unit. Our center, which was in the School of Engineering for these many years, joined the Vice Provost for Teaching and Learning. A couple things. First, if you look at the dates here, you'll notice that there are a lot more dates stacked, and that's a lot more variability. I don't know about you, but we're sensing a lot of movement. So this gives you some sense of the history. Let me move quickly to the present. The kinds of things that we're talking about today. So the great thing is the Thailand's Cyber Initiative. This is just a wonderful opportunity. The government is actually sponsoring this and really involved and engaged. That's not the case in the United States of America today. I'll talk a little about the history and then share what I see. The government, as I mentioned in the case with Frederick Terman, was sponsoring lots of research for lots of universities throughout its history. They still sponsor research today. And that symbiotic relationship would generate interest in great students from universities, and Hewlett and Packard would create a business nearby the university. It was a great symbiotic relationship. In fact, Hewlett-Packard, when they decided about global overseas locations, what they would do is they would develop campuses near universities, really good universities. So if you track the locations of the HP headquarters overseas, it's always near a great campus, because they knew that they needed to get great talent, and they could find it at the university. They needed trained engineers. They needed access to ongoing education to benefit their company. By contrast, the university benefited from that tight relationship because they could have and bend the content to relevant industry interest. And governments won because they supported the university, they got tax benefit. So it was a great symbiotic relationship. Well, today, at least in the US and also in Europe, this is separating. The connective tissue that was so important to the Silicon Valley's creation, Stanford, HP, and the university, is starting to fracture. And what we're seeing is governments, for example, in the state of California, the 6th largest economy in the world, one of the best public university systems accessible, the UC California system, UC Berkeley, UCLA, and so on. They're not nearly getting as much funding from the government. They're having to increase tuition, and the value proposition is going away. They cannot provide education for the citizens of California. They're in fact importing more foreign students in order to cover the costs, the tuition gap that they have. This is a big problem. Universities, in turn, are not getting as much research dollars. They're having to look inward to think about how to do more with less funding, with less material. They have more students as well. So it's getting complicated. It's getting difficult for universities to operate. They're in fact talking to folks like Willem and me to generate revenue on the existing assets, to produce revenue in a more increasingly more important ways. Industry, well, you know what? They don't need us anymore. I make that bold statement. It's probably not true, but I say that to maybe wake you up if you're enjoying your a little nap here. Industry can take advantage of all the courses that are online, the massively open and online courses, and they can simply watch those, pay a low cost to Coursera or to other aggregator at OpenEdX, and they can educate their teams as they go. You heard from Willem that he's already working with companies to try to give them the education bits that the millennials want. So the market is changing. The industry doesn't need the education from the universities as it once did. So the dependence is and this is definitely true for United States and also for Europe. Not so much for Thailand, which is great news. So while you have that, take advantage. It's in this gap. It's in this gap here that education technology companies and investments are occurring. These are 3 Stanford-founded startups. You probably have heard of Udacity, founded by one of the faculty members at Stanford. He was an adjunct faculty, Sebastian Trun, a famous guy. He done a lot of work at Google and so on, and he wanted to democratize education. He wanted to make the Stanford course that he taught in artificial intelligence available to everybody, right? And so what he did is create a company to do this. He stepped away from Stanford and created and founded Udacity. And their goal was to try to build more intense and intimate relationships with companies like Google to take advantage of this. He famously connected with Georgia Tech and also a large telecom provider, AT&T in the United States. AT&T gave the funding to start the master's degree, a professional master's degree that Georgia Tech is running. My good friend Nelson Baker, the Dean of Continuing and Professional Studies at Georgia Tech, has been involved in this activity. Georgia Tech now delivers more master's degrees based on this single program, that it's a professional master's in computer science, than any other university, maybe in combined, but certainly the CS degrees awarded by Georgia Tech, enabled by Udacity, more than anybody on the planet. 3,000 a year. 3,000 graduates a year in computer science master's degree. Stunning. Coursera, another Stanford-founded startup, generously funded. They're on their 4th round now. They're going to go public. Don't tell them I told you. They have a CEO, a Stanford graduate, a terrific guy. They're doing really great work. They're thinking about providing, from the genesis of the massively open and online courses, they're delivering specializations, lots of other things. And I'll talk about that case in a moment. And NovoEd was another Stanford-founded startup, Amin Sabiri, Management Science and Engineering. They initially were a catalog of courses, but they were focused on trying to build groups and active learning. Willem mentioned this, active learning online groups. So there now have become a platform. Our own Graduate School of Business leverages NovoEd to build little groups that can have discussions and so on. So these, in this gap, also NovoEd is working with industry. Again, why does industry need us? In this gap, these three companies have emerged, and I think that there will be more to come, many more to come if you follow the investment in the education technology space. The universities have been, from our perspective, been thinking about lots of future-focused experiments in this sort of present day. Just a few of them. Coursera, I mentioned. Udacity has a nano degree with a job guarantee. What they were doing is, if you didn't get a job, they refunded the cost of your tuition to them. So I'm not sure about a job guarantee, but anyway, a refund if you didn't get a job. Many people are thinking about, and this is really healthy, I think, what does the future of the university look like? What is our value? What is our obligation? The Gates Foundation has spent a lot of time funding courses. Georgetown, Stanford, of course. I particularly like Arizona State. If you don't know Arizona State University, Michael Crow, the president, has done a spectacular job in setting a future state. Please go look at his website. Amazingly great work. Right? I think Stanford is doing some work as well, I'd like to think, but I'm really impressed with Arizona State. And from the top down, this has been a great effort. A lot of universities are thinking about, the credentials, both professional credentials as well as formal credentials. The proliferation of this is just stunning. You can get a credential in anything, really. It's amazing. And there are again, more that we think will be coming. So the future. I think I want to spend a little bit of time here on the future, and I have about 10 minutes, and then I'll open it up to questions. I hope that I'm generating some questions, and if not, I'm going to be more controversial. So think about those questions. So the future. We think a future portfolio is an interesting approach. We have worked for 3 years to get this almost approved at Stanford University. I think that I would point to this top section. Everybody in this, if you're part of a university, you know the deal of the Stanford credit, the university degree, and so on, the connective tissue between the master's degree, individual courses, certificates, and so on. So that's a known thing. What's less clear, and in fact is a little bit of the Wild West, is the rest of it, right? So you had these MOOCs, and if you go on LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn all the time, and if you go on LinkedIn right now, there's a bunch of people who have LinkedIn, they took Andrew Ng's course, right? And they sort of put their, now they're a Stanford graduate because they took a LinkedIn, they have on LinkedIn they have a credential, and they sort of say, Stanford, I took one course from Stanford, it was a MOOC. Maybe I had my sister do the course as opposed to me, and now they're claiming somehow they have a connection. So we segmented this in, so we know these people, they're verified. These professional program opportunities, a certificate of completion, a certificate of achievement, and a professional certificate, this is the non-credit domain, but we're very interested in those people. And then we have this platform where we know these people, we can identify them, and we have an understanding of who they are. These people we don't know. Right? We have no idea. You may say you took a MOOC, but I'm not sure. Maybe your brother did the test or something. How do you validate that? It's very, very difficult at this point. So I think I mention this because the university has predominantly, for the last maybe 1,000 years, focused here. I think the opportunity and the real traction could be right here. I would argue that the degree is no longer a 4 or 8 year degree. It's a 40 or 50 year degree. If you think about the millennials group that have graduated, or those that will graduate, it's likely that they'll have not 2 or 3 careers. I had 5 jobs, different jobs at Stanford, but they'll have 5 completely separate disciplines they'll have to manage. They'll have to learn and grow new perspective and new skills. And they'll be looking to us as universities to provide that. I think that this area will do that. I'm not going to leave my job to go back to university for 2 or 3 years. Not going to do it. I have a job. I may have a family. I like making money. I can go out and buy a nice meal for my colleagues or for my friend or significant other. I'm not going back to the university. University needs to come to me with a flexible offering, and we think this credentialing area will be rich. If, for example, Stanford graduates 5,000 people up here in bachelor's, master's, and PhDs every year, we may have 50,000 graduating with a certificate or a credential every year. That's where I'd like to go. We have now, I mentioned 25,000. We'll have 30,000 enrollments in our professional programs. We think that's going to scale. Coursera is the competition. In 7 years, they have built an install base of 31 million users. They have about 500,000 paid. If you do the math on that, it's exactly what a marketing list might give you in terms of email marketing, right? So they're leveraging their list. It's a Stanford faculty. Andrew Ng and Daphne Kohler founded that company. Neither one is engaged, in part because they've generated about $200 million in venture capital investment, and the VCs want their money back, right? They're going to think about expanding from free MOOCs to degree and doing everything in between, providing these flexible credentials. They're going to provide the best possible product at the lowest possible cost. They have many more engineers than we do. I can't compete with their technology and their approach. We leverage them. We also leverage other platforms and technology so that we can learn more. Keep your friends close and your competitors closer, I would say. And finally, they're starting to compete with the companies that we engage. They're talking with Hewlett-Packard. We talk with Hewlett-Packard. They're selling Andrew Ng's course to HP at the $75 rate. I sell that same course for actually $4,000, a graduate master's degree level course. Which one do you think HP is going to take? Roughly the same content, right? Education is we'll talk about that. So they're competing with us. They're bundling our content. They're taking advantage of many of our brands, and they have a better offer than we do. So 7 predictions, and then some recommendations. So education is becoming a commodity. Now, many faculty don't like to hear that. My stuff is unique. I'm very special. Not really. No. I can search online. I can find anybody. I can compare and contrast lectures and presentation styles. Game over. Think Amazon. Think Taobao. Think any platform that will allow me to compare and contrast. I'm going to go for the best quality at the lowest possible price. You'll use the same mentality that you use to buy anything. And the universities have to wrestle with this. Companies will craft their own curriculum. They don't need us. You know, I think we had a conversation with a company in Europe. They'd never actually seen online stuff. They came to us in 2012. Now they have a full, robust portfolio. They no longer engage with us. They don't need us. Training will dominate. Companies will have specific activities they would like to focus on, and training will dominate. You've heard of these boot camps. I want to learn how to code. Let's go do a boot camp. That's going to be great. Okay? Here's the risk, though. Universities provide broader perspective, how to think about a problem. Training is not education. Universities educate. We teach people how to think critically about a problem, be thoughtful about potential solutions. Training provides me the ability to do some specific task in some given period of time. This is a risk. Universities will need to reinvent their value. If you believe the story that education is a commodity, we need to think about place-based education as a great opportunity to experiment with blended learning, to scale the activity with our companies, to provide additional benefit. In short, we need to question that value. We need to think about where the ball is headed, where the future is going, and how we can experiment and pilot ways to get there. And in fact, I think units like ours can provide some perspective on that reinvention. I talked with the Department of International Trade and Promotion yesterday. We're thinking about ways to engage here in Thailand, how we might experiment with them to do some things. I'm talking with industry on a fairly consistent basis. We have great conversations with faculty in the university who want to think about different ways to engage. Our unit, in short, could be the potential pilot and experiment. If it doesn't work, I'll take the hit for the lack of success. If it does work, we want to be there and take that lesson and scale that lesson inside of Stanford. Credentials will become more valued than degrees. It's a simple rule of numbers. The degree will be important. The credential will allow me to maintain my job for a period of 50 to 60 years, which is what the period will be for those of us, those graduating and into entering the world of work. And then finally, the age of master teachers is near. Andrew Ng, he was the first mover advantage in artificial intelligence. He's now the most famous guy. He's creating content. He wants to create a master's degree. He's the guy. He's the rock star in this space. And universities should think about who's our rock star and what can we do. So a few recommendations. And I have just a few minutes here. Lifelong learner. We think it's this 40-year degree, 50-year degree. And universities have an obligation to understand that it's about the perspective of the consumer, not necessarily the perspective of a student who has limited rights and privileges. We need to think more broadly about the life. This person who's on our campus will become a future customer, and I mean customer of ours, because it's about the consumer relationship. Universities are changing and shifting. We have to develop and deepen our industry relationships. We've got to know what they're thinking. I had timer for 40 minutes, so anyway, we started a little late. We have to consider what we can do on the campus to practice, to learn, to learn and grow. The data is really important. And if we're giving it to Coursera or Udacity or other companies, we're not benefiting unless we've written the contract very carefully. So you won't get the insights that you need in order to build a future university unless you have the data. So think about what you can do inside your university with experiments. If you're a unit like mine, don't innovate. Faculty innovate. We're the service provider. We have to help support experiments. Think about the lab infrastructure. That's how I think about our unit. If you go out and say we're going to innovate and reinvent the future of the university, boy, you will get shot down quicker than you can say bang. Focus on faculty strengths. Build programs that leverage the heck out of your particular expertise. I love the example that Willem gave around solar. For us, it's artificial intelligence. Right? We have an unbelievable faculty in that space, and we should be owning that. And finally, while there's lots of challenges and lots of turmoil in this era of disruption, I leave you with what I think is a quite positive quote by Margaret Mead, the famous anthropologist. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed people can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. Right? So I'm delighted to have presented a few thoughts. I think we're all part of the community. I want to make sure that we can learn from each other. I look forward to maybe coming back again. I'm disappointed I didn't come earlier because you have been pioneers in this space. I'm part of the International Association for Continuing Engineering Education, which is a global organization. I attend the World Engineering Education Forum, which was recently held in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. We'd be delighted to share lessons so that we can become a small, tight-knit group of a community to make a dramatic change, a change in education in an era of disruption. Thank you very much.
Actually, we are a few minutes late behind the schedule, but we started late, as you mentioned, so I think it's fair enough to give Professor Paul Mecker floor for any questions from the audiences. Please.
Questions, emotional outbursts, challenges. Stunned silence.
Yes. น้องขอไมโครโฟนข้างหน้า
If his microphone coming.
Hi, thank you, Professor, for a very nice presentation. I'm just wondering, perhaps Stanford has come up with research or surveyed on the perception between online degrees and institutionalized on-site degrees. Mm-hmm. So perhaps can you enlighten us on the perception from perhaps U.S. point of view, yep, compared to have you heard on Asian point of view? Because one of the challenges that we had actually when you offer a program, now we are offering courses, mm-hmm, online, mm-hmm, but when you offer an online programs like Master of Science or master's degree in electronics engineering, for example, a fully hands-on course like that, technical courses like that, programs like that, people would say that you don't have enough hands-on experience. So do share with us.
So a couple things. First, thank you for the question. I think I would characterize it as sort of maybe a little bit about the value of that vis-a-vis the on-campus experience and the hands-on component. We have found that a couple of studies that we conducted. First, there is no difference between an online master's degree in electrical engineering and on campus in terms of the results of the students. So that's a study we have conducted in order to maintain our accreditation. So we have to prove that. We leverage the curriculum, we extend it to industry. They achieve the same or even, in fact, better grades than the on-campus students. So that's the first thing. The second is, it turns out that the experience in the companies, many of those have far better facilities for hands-on lab work and so on than we do at Stanford. You can imagine Intel, for example, right down the road, has far better facilities in terms of their labs to conduct electrical engineering experiments. And so we work with the company in the particular area to try to think about ways to enable that hands-on experience. I think the other thing is the degree that we extend, especially, is really valued. Often you go through the path in the university and you don't really understand, why am I doing these courses? They make no sense. The person in the world of work has a far richer perspective and can bring that to the table. They have gone through the life experience. And they're thinking about an opportunity. The education is a means to an end. For the student on the residential campus, it's the end is the degree itself. And then they sort of figure out, okay, now what do I do? So it's actually, in fact, much more valuable, and we found much more tangible results because of this. Thank you for the question. Yes, we have a question right here. I don't know where the microphone went. I'd throw one to you, but I might land and...
First of all, thank you very much for your nice presentation. And I'd like to share with you, I think the first one is MOOC. MOOCs, in my view, I think MOOC is try to build multimedia content to the student, right? And then for your topic, you're talking about the Beyond. Beyond is mean now we try to build the multimedia content. It means that we try to make our student autonomous or automation, right? And I think AI or artificial intelligence will be the near future that become a teacher. And I like to see your opinion how to apply the AI to the MOOC system. Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, the great thing about massively open online courses is it generates an enormous amount of data on the students. And so you can actually think about mining that data for keen insights. I think that's where AI might be able to provide support. My good friend Nelson Baker at Georgia Tech has used AI on the customer service side of the equation to think about ways to provide automated answers to frequently asked questions. So they've used the data, they've figured out the questions, and now they're using AI on the customer support side. I think what you're suggesting is, could we use it to generate content? Yeah, that's really interesting. I haven't thought deeply about that, but on its surface, you could imagine that an intelligent agent could search all of our content, pull the best stuff, and provide a curated experience that's even better than any one individual course. Right? That's the opportunity that I see. That's why I think Coursera is the competition. They actually have those courses. All they need to do is convince the universities to allow them to aggregate that content. It's really interesting thought. They're doing some work in medicine along these lines as well. The computer can pass a medical exam in China, apparently. So China better increase the intensity of that test, or what does the human value contribute? I think, for me, it goes very quickly back to value. How can we as humans provide more value on top of the systems that are helping us, enabling us to do great things? Other questions? I may have exceeded the time limit here.
Yes. Okay, one more. So this is probably the last question. Thank you.
We have a mic question here. Do we have a mic? Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Maka. It's brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I hesitate to speak because I don't want to monopolize the microphone. But since there's no one else, I take the opportunity to put this to you. I'm an old student of MOOCs, and through my experience, a lot of them are the best I ever had in all my life, and I've been to world's top universities. So I think I really appreciate the MOOCs and people behind the MOOCs such as yourself. And I was just wondering, I understand that Harvard would not allow the regular students to use MOOCs to count towards the degree. And I wonder how it works with you at Stanford, because you do have courses that can be counted. And what criteria do you use to decide which one are going to be eligible for the degree or which not? And I was also curiously wondering, how do you work out, because how much people are going to pay? Because there's quite a difference in the cost. Thank you.
Yeah, so that's probably, so you want curriculum development, you want perspective on how we make those judgments, and then you want the business model. That might exceed the time limit that we have, which is a quick response. But let me just deal with what we have done at Stanford is experimented. There's a faculty member in electrical engineering, Nick McEwen. Nick McEwen created a MOOC. Okay, he leveraged the assets in the MOOC to show the students the content of the course, and then he flipped the classroom experience to make it more interactive and problem-based. In other words, don't do your homework. Come to class and do your homework and build a problem session. Your homework is to watch the MOOC that I have developed in this content area. So this is the concept of flipping the classroom. It actually didn't go very well. It did not go very well. It was a great opportunity to learn. We studied the results. The students, Nick loved it because he got to meet these, so the faculty had a great experience. The students, not so much. They felt like they were doing double work because they also had outside activity. So I think in this model, what we've done is a number of experiments. I don't think that there's we wouldn't say take a MOOC and get credit. That we would probably say leverage the MOOC assets and do something else in the classroom with your cohort and peers. But it's learning. So we're not going to say we would tie it to the cohort-based experience at Stanford, and that's how we would leverage it. In terms of the business model, what's interesting about that, I can share a quick story. Andrew Ng, a famous guy doing the AI and so on. We actually took his AI list, the MOOC list that we have and own. We sent an email blast. Those who really want to test their mettle against a tougher course, a graduate course, please take it. We actually had significant enrollments based on that email. They had taken the MOOC, and now they wanted a separate challenge. Come really take a graduate course at Stanford, and we had good success there. So a little bit of business model insight. Thank you again. It's a pleasure to be here. Look forward to the conversations in the hallway. Thank you.
So allow me to continue with our next speaker. Rarely have I seen the female keynote speaker at the conference. I'm very proud to introduce our next speaker. She has been in academic for over 30 years and is currently at the Wawasan Open University in Penang, Malaysia, where she actively promotes the importance and value of student engagement for student success. She has taught, researched, and contributed to the development of the University of Malaya, International Medical University, Open University Malaysia, and also the Samorna University in Jakarta. As Malaysia's e-learning pioneer, she has been championing the need to use appropriate learning technologies and to design effective but efficient instruction for blended and online learning. She has contributed significantly to the development of the open and distant learning since 2004. She has written over 800 articles as a newspaper columnist and has spoken as keynote and invited speakers around the world. She is also a member of the ASEAN Cyber University Project and also was named second among the top 14 leaders in educational technology in Southeast Asia and received an Education Leadership Award in 2014. Distinguished participants, may I proudly present Professor Dr. Rosrani Wati Abbas.
Hello, hello. Okay, that's right. Here is pointer. Thank you. Okay. Okay.
วันนี้อาจจะเสียไปตัวนี้ผมไม่แน่ใจว่ามันมีอยู่ในเครื่องผมที่เขาเคยส่งให้ผมไม่รู้เขาไม่ได้แจ้งผมมาว่าที่จะใช้เครื่องหรือถ้าเป็นไฟล์เดียวกันเปิดจากเครื่องผมเนี่ย
It's not working. Wow, this is loud. Good morning and sawadika. Thank you for being here this morning. I would also like to thank an old friend, somebody who I met, I think, more than 5 years ago, Ajahn Tapani, actually more than 10 years ago, in Malaysia. And she has been bringing me to Thailand once in a while to share some of what we've done, my ideas, and so on. Okay, actually I didn't know I was going to speak in this grand hall until about 2 weeks ago when I got the program. And then I thought, oh dear, it's a lot of people. And I hope to be able to share with you my ideas and my perspective on MOOCs. My advantage is I've come from the older technology, when we first started using OHPs. And today, of course, we can be delivering courses to anyone around the world using whatever media, whatever platforms that we can get our hands on. And today, of course, we have not only the learning management systems, but we also have social media. And that's very powerful when you combine them together. Okay, let me share with you, when I was asked for a title, let me just add the word designing for MOOCs and Beyond, which is your theme. Of course, I didn't know what I was going to say yet at that time, but as the days progressed, I was giving a lot of thought to what I should say. This is from my perspective, based on my experience for the last, I think, 38 years since I first used the microcomputer. It started with computer literacy and then went on and on, computer-assisted instruction, multimedia, and after that, online learning. And of course, having been in the open distance learning institution for, I think, maybe about a dozen years, a lot of things have changed. So let me just share with you my perspective of what should be, or what could be for MOOCs and Beyond. Okay, now, is this on? It's not moving. Okay. All right, MOOCs and Beyond is a theme, and welcome to the conference. I think Ajahn Tapani and team has done a good job in bringing everybody here today. And let me ask you, how many of you are from the universities and how many of you from school? Universities? Okay, that looks like about half. How about the school system? School? Not too many, maybe mostly university. Okay, good. Then it makes my presentation easier. First of all, greetings from Wawasan Open University. We are located in Penang, Malaysia. Penang is an island. It's called Pearl of the Orient. It's also a heritage city. And when you come, there's history, there's good food, and hopefully good education as well. We have two buildings. The front, the white building, is called the Heritage House, or the Heritage Building. And this is where the main administration is, the main administration offices are held. And then the building in the back is a donation by one of the philanthropists in Malaysia, 12 stories high, and this is where classes are held and where faculty and administrators' offices are located. So when you come to Penang, let me know. I'll try to meet you and maybe give you a tour of the university. Before that, I should have said that behind the tall building is the ocean. So from my office, I can also see the ocean. So a view of the sea. Sometimes I see ferries go by, sometimes I see cruise ships go by. So there's life on the ocean. But I also see reclamation vessels because islands are being created right outside. And I think Ajahn Tapani has seen this when you were in Penang last year. So Penang is changing as well. And of course, like any other thing, universities also have to change. We have to adapt to the 21st century needs. We have to adapt to industry needs. We have to adapt to what a citizen should be, adapt to what they need and what we can do for them. Okay, I'm stuck again. Okay, maybe I have to do it from here. No? Oh. Okay, this is my agenda for this morning. Just a little bit of history about MOOCs, and then about what else MOOCs could be, about why MOOC, just a little perspective from there, and then talk about redesigning MOOCs, and then designing for learner engagement, and then give some concluding remarks. So that's my outline. Okay, a little bit of history. Now, many of you are familiar with this, but let me just give you a screen capture of what, in terms of growth of MOOCs, the statistics. In 2012, as rightly mentioned by our previous speaker, Paul, the first known MOOC was the MOOC on artificial intelligence from Stanford University. So that began sometime in 2012. And today we've got over 9,000 plus courses on MOOC. So a growth of 9,000% over the last 8 years. We've also got some top MOOC providers. The top 5 are Coursera, edX, Zutang X from China, Udacity, and FutureLearn. So just a very quick capture. And 81 million students have taken MOOCs, 800 plus universities offering the MOOCs, and then 9,400 courses. So that's been quite a significant development. Let me share with you my first CMOOC rather than the XMOOC that you find on Coursera and Udacity and all. The first CMOOC, my first CMOOC experience as a facilitator was when George Siemens contacted me and said, "Can you give a MOOC?" I said, "Oh, what was that?" And this was way back in 2011. I didn't know what it was, but he told me it's just for 1 week. What happened was I think they had a series of 50 people, e-learning, basically those in EdTech and e-learning, 50 people lined up, and I was week 2. Week 1 was introduction. Okay, week 2 was me. In a way, it's good to be the first one because I don't have any benchmark, so I just did whatever I could think of. Basically, to give and share content and knowledge. And that's all he asked me to do. Okay, I did that. Because of the time zone difference, I think it was like 12 a.m. or 1 a.m. Malaysian time. I should be in bed, but I tried to stay awake to give this 1 hour session. And they had, I think they were using Grasshopper or something to capture my so-called lecture, to share with, at that time, almost 100 learners from all over the world. This is not a graduate course. This was not for formal learning. But I thought it was interesting. After I had given my so-called lecture, I realized that students, well, the so-called students, were involved in this learning that were on different paths. Because after my session, they blogged about what I had said. They had, some of them even captured my presentation. And then they talked about it. I mean, it was just on different platforms, different people doing different things. And till today, I remember the impact of it because I thought, hey, this is a very good way to learn. Not didactic only, but there were discussions after that. And then you don't know where the discussion was going towards, and you don't know what platforms they were going to use. But I have a reason for saying that because I want to relate it back towards the end of my presentation. And I realized that it was, other than giving and sharing content and knowledge, it was making the connections. Yeah, allowing others to make the connections from what I said to whatever they were, whatever prerequisite knowledge they had, or to whatever new knowledge they were going to contribute. And it was about going with the flow while connecting the dots. There was no formal assessment for these MOOCs, for these CMOOCs, and it was at that time the connectivist approach that George Siemens and Stephen Downes were promoting. You know what the connectivist approach is? Some people say it's not a theory of learning, although they are trying to forward it as a theory of learning. But whatever it is the connectivist approach, where when you use the internet, you just connect from one point to another. And with the CMOOCs, you never know what learning treasures you will uncover. You will never know the learning pathway. You don't know who else you'll be learning with. You don't know how deep you can go while you learn. And you don't know the knowledge or the wisdom you will end up with. There were no learning outcomes, basically. Yeah? Okay. Okay, I know why. Because this screen keeps coming up. You don't see it, but the BITEC networking screen comes up. Okay, this was the website for the CMOOC platform. And today, most of the MOOCs are XMOOCs. What are they like? They are structured in presentation, in terms of content, and more like the traditional classroom model, but it's online. And I personally have a problem with this, maybe because I'm not a student, but I want to learn new things. So when I take some of these courses, I find that there's too much content For 1 week, sometimes 6 videos to watch, 10 minutes each. I took a finance course, I think about a couple of years ago. I told myself, okay, I'm going to try and finish this course, 14 weeks. But in the end, after 2 weeks, I got a little bit tired, from watching one video after another, even though I speeded up the video. You know what I mean, yeah? So that learning style does not fit my style. I don't know about you, but so actually today what I'm going to address is not MOOCs for university so much, but MOOCs for lifelong learner, and for the lifelong learner, as well as from the, personal enrichment perspective. Okay, I find that XMOOCs are not as revolutionary other than it being online. I also find that it's more pedagogical in approach rather than andragogical. If you're an educationist, you'll know what I mean. Okay? It takes the form of didactic rather than for the adult learner who wants to explore on their own, who wants to have a free hand about what they want to do, who they want to learn with, and so on. I find that XMOOCs are more about information dissemination, pretty much like our traditional courses in the classroom. And with thousands of students, you can't expect too much feedback from the facilitator. At best, there are tutors, TAs usually, in the case of the United States, online with you. So there's low quality feedback from course facilitator. To me, there's low learner engagement. I'll share with you what learner engagement is later on. And of course, because of that, it's shallow learning. I would prefer that when we learn, we go deep. Maybe because I've been teaching more of postgraduate courses, I want my students to go deep. And I want my students to get what they want for their own use, their own value, rather than what we want, and it stops the same. Because assessment will dictate that. And of course, there's no, if you're taking it for free, usually there's no formal assessment. And it tends to take the behaviorist approach. And of course, if you want the full experience, you have to pay for it. So that's basically what XMOOCs are today. This is based on my list. Can you agree with me on that one, if you're familiar with MOOCs? More or less? Okay. Okay, now this is what George Siemens says, and I would like to quote him. The MOOC has promoted the acceptance of online learning and enabled change and diversification in the way that education in the classroom and online is delivered. Okay, at best, it's promoted online learning, which I personally thank, because I've gone into online learning since, I think, 2008, 100% online learning, designed a postgraduate program called the Masters of Instructional Design and Technology. So since 2008 we designed, 2009 January we delivered to students from all around the world, from Finland to Indonesia, also covering the Indian continent and the African continent, also the Caribbean islands. So that's where our learners come from. Some of them have PhDs but are taking this program because they're going to develop or going to manage an online distance learning program. So that's why they took the course. And it's been a very interesting experience, from struggling to find the right platform at the beginning to deliver this 100% online course, because you never meet them. Everything is online for a period of about 14 weeks. And because of MOOCs, now online learning is popular. So I appreciate the fact that MOOC has made an influence. Not sure how to turn this off, but okay, I just have to go back and forth. My question to you, to the audience, is: Are we happy with the way MOOCs have been designed and implemented? If you're familiar with the traditional way of learning, if you enjoy that approach, then of course you will be very happy. But for someone like me, I think there's more to it. So then, next I'm going to ask, are you happy with what we have achieved through MOOCs? Question for you. You think about it. Now, what else could MOOCs be? What else? Is it more of the same? More of the same. We have some MOOCs, we do the same thing, replicate. But maybe different courses by different people, and maybe your university instead of other universities. Or could it be enhanced learning? Could the new MOOCs be enhanced learning from X MOOCs? And then consider C MOOCs, and then consider something that I will mention later, W MOOCs. And could it be more credit-bearing opportunities? Because right now, some universities are acknowledging the fact that if you have a certificate, the student will be given the credit. But could it be more of that? Because some universities are not. Could it be more platforms? And I hear that some countries or some universities are toying with using other platforms. Could it be more choices? Could it be more of what else? Yeah. So that's some of the questions. Now, when I explored recently, I found that there are MOOC-based degrees already. You pay quite a bit. For example, a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science is £9,000 to £17,000. This is offered by the University of London on Coursera. That's quite a bit. But then, you can remain where you are and take a course from the UK. There's also a Master of Science in Accounting from the University of Illinois, again on Coursera. And the cost is about 30,000 USD. So now everything is becoming commercialized, not so cheap. Not so cheap. So this is happening. I'm not going to talk to you about it, I'm just sharing this information. Now, why MOOC? Now, because of this, what else is happening, why MOOC? Why do we still want to consider MOOCs? I'm going to share with you the point of view of a MOOC enthusiast. I would label this person as a lifelong learner. Let's see what she says. And incidentally, I presented this 3 years ago, this conference, and I shared at that time 25 ways of MOOCing, but one person's perspective of why she goes into MOOCs is this. I can develop myself academically and professionally. At that time, she was a master's student. I can design my own education and learning. I can do my own self-paced learning. I can learn anytime, anywhere, and on any device. I can learn from the good, better, and the best lecturers or subject matter experts from around the world. I can get certificates from the top international universities or MOOC providers. I can learn with and from international coursemates. Isn't that a good reason? Do some of you relate to this? Do any of you relate to this? Is this a good reason to MOOC? Yes. Okay. Now, what if now, ASEAN economy, ASEAN is supposed to be together now, right? It's an open economy now. However, I find that it's not that much different from before we, have this ASEAN economy. And I'm wondering, because sometimes when I go to different ASEAN countries, people ask me about Malaysia. And I'm surprised with some of the questions. They say, do you have the same food? Yeah. Because they don't know how close we can be, how sometimes things are different, and we can appreciate that difference. So I'm thinking, maybe we should have some courses that will benefit the ASEAN citizen. Okay, so how about regional integration through shared learning experiences via online learning communities? It could be MOOCs, yeah? But we have to set up a very intense community of learners. So we have massive open online learning. Nothing's changed. But can we increase the openness? Can we enhance the learning experience? And can we, as a result of learning from the MOOCs, become informed, learned, and wise for practical reasons? This is what George Siemens also says. What is being ignored is the development of a new learning ecology. Can we take advantage of this? Serving an audience that higher education has ignored to date. So let's think about this. And adding value to MOOCs. And again, I'm thinking, now I'm from the Open and Distance Learning Institution. I think the credit-bearing courses are useful. Beyond that, MOOCs can also be a form of personal enrichment of our own selves. Learn whatever we want, and MOOCs offer us that because it's out there, so many to choose from. And then, of course, to support our lifelong learning needs. And at the end of it, to achieve this regional integration, the creation of regional communities. Let me expand on some of this. What I believe needs to happen is to design the courses for learner engagement. Remember I was telling you, every week you have like 6-8 videos. I don't know whether that's learner engagement. To me, it's not so. It's just listening one way. You were always nodding, because you said you took a lot of MOOCs, right? So you understand what I'm saying. All right, so could there be more to just listening or watching videos or reading, and after that coming back and then answering all this, whatever questions that we get. Now, what about this learner engagement in online learning? Of course, we have the usual learning outcomes, learning content, and now, of course, the activities and the assessment. That's a normal course. But if we can do a little bit different, what if at the end of it, it's not to be able to respond to the assessments provided, to the formal assessments, but it's more about building our own knowledge and wisdom. And at the end, of course, we attain the satisfaction and the success, but based on our own personal perspective. So my perspective was the lifelong learner, and for the personal enrichment, more that than the others, because the others are being talked about by so many others. Now this is, I have got 5 points there. I had asked my online students, because when you're delivering an online course, to engage them is not so easy. And I don't give lectures. I will share some videos, I will share some things to be read, and after that, they go off on their own tangent. But what the learning happens, what I can see, how their learning has evolved, or what learning they're going through, I can see that through forums. So my emphasis is always on forums. And some of them, they write for one posting, one entire page. If you were to print, it's one A4 page, single spacing, or 1.5 pages of their responses to the media that I post online. And I like that, because I also learn from them, because it comes from their perspective. It must be their working experience or their learning experience. And then they share with others. And then another student posts based on that. So that's the kind of learning I enjoy. So I asked these students of mine, I asked a question. I said, I'm going to be presenting a paper at that time in Riyadh. So this is a screenshot. So if you see there, it's 2013 Riyadh. And I asked them, what do you think what does it take to be engaged in learning? So they're saying, to be engaged in learning means to be self-motivated to learn. That's very powerful. And then learning engagement refers to a situation where the instructor encourages learners to take an active role in their own learning by giving them practical task that will promote information processing and understanding of concepts. Now, these are their words, it's not my words. Another student says, I think that this means for the learner to be actively involved in all learning activities through interacting with the instructor, the peers, the web, and the learning material. Another student, it also means that the task must be able to maintain the student's interest, and so must include tasks designed to challenge the student's problem-solving abilities, reasoning, evaluation skills, and other cognitive abilities. And another student, learning engagement involves learners in authentic tasks to involve problem solving. So authentic has been repeated a few times, so that's what they want. These are the adult learners' andragogical approach. Okay, this is a very interesting model, a very powerful model that I personally have adopted when I do my online courses. You may want to go back and explore. Right now it is on the Athabasca website, Athabasca University. Community of Inquiry, Anderson and Garrison had a lot to do at the very beginning, years ago. And I first saw this, I think, in 2010. And I've got some papers on this. And what it says is basically we want to create an educational experience that is based on three important presence: social presence, cognitive presence, teaching presence. When I do my courses, I try to make these three elements come into play or come into being. Okay. Teaching presence, what is that? This is 100% online, yeah? What is teaching presence? Basically, the students will feel that the teacher is there, although the teacher may not be there for a whole week, but they feel that the teaching presence is there. What is social presence? Social presence is when the students feel that this is a trustworthy platform. They will get positive responses and not be criticized for the wrong reasons, that they will grow as a learner. So the platform must be friendly, the environment must be an environment that respects the students, and so on. Cognitive presence. Now we're dealing with adult learners. I mentioned to you some of the students that I had were PhD holders. Some of them were directors of units. Okay. Cognitive presence is something where they feel that they are cognitively challenged. The level Okay, Michael can help me with that if you can. I don't see that on my screen, so that's why it's not easy. Okay, so cognitive presence is when you pose. I guess that's why they wanted that authentic task. Okay, authentic learning, and cognitive presence is when they are challenged at the right level. Thank you. Thanks, Michael. At the right level. Michael is always very helpful. He's the one very perceptive. Good to have him around. Okay, so cognitive presence again, the right level, for the right thing, for the right purpose, authentic learning. That means if it's authentic learning, they will be able to relate very easily. And they like that. So for adult learners, we have to have this. And when we achieve all these three, well, we will have this beautiful educational experience for our students. Of course, social presence and cognitive presence, according to the Community of Inquiry framework, supports the discourse. So people will feel safe, and then they feel that they will be respected, for their opinions and so on, and they're challenged at the right cognitive level, so they will go into this forum discussions deep, go into deep discussions. Social presence and teaching presence, when you have it, it is to set the climate. And of course, between this and this, cognitive and teaching presence, it is also about the teacher selecting the right content. And the content need not be your own content. There's so many things out there, OERs, YouTube videos, Vimeo maybe, so many things, even infographics. Just choosing the right thing. Now, it is a challenge for the facilitator of the course to find something relatable and something useful, valuable, and so on. That takes quite a lot of time. Okay, my concluding remarks. I don't know whether you got what I wanted to say. I'm trying to explain as best as I can. Because maybe some of you are new to MOOCs, some of you who are not so new maybe can understand me better. But if you don't understand, it's okay. It's an exposure. But what I hope is you will think a little bit, after this. Concluding remarks. Okay. The path forward to me is, now I'm not saying this on my computer. Oh dear. I'm not saying this on my computer, so I can't close that screen. But basically, the path forward is we always get information from our courses. If you are a student, it's always information, lots of information from the textbook, from the lecturer, maybe from the PowerPoint slides. It's always information. And that to me is the ex-MOOCs. Thank you again, Michael. And then we have, the next stage of the information is to gain knowledge from whatever course you're enrolled in. And that to me, easily achieved through CMOOCs, because you go to learning paths that are unplanned. It's your personal learning paths. So you build knowledge as you go along because it is what you want, So you find the right connections or the right dots and put it, in your learning pathway. And of course, the ultimate is to gain wisdom from the courses that you take, from the interactions that you have with the other learners, from the materials that you interact with, from that community of inquiry framework. Once that is well achieved, you will get that to the level of wisdom. And that's what I think, if, for example, we wanted that regional integration, perhaps courses on, what I'm thinking of is ASEAN studies. Maybe something that all undergrads have to take to understand what ASEAN, the ASEAN community is all about, to understand aspects of each ASEAN country. It could be culture and traditions, it could be finance, it could be anything, We can always set a curriculum for this. So what if we had this ASEAN studies at the undergraduate level, and maybe in the last year of the students' program of studies, take this course and understand each other. I think there's value to that. Instead of now, courses in silo, and then there's no ultimate purpose, except for just the information or the knowledge. So I would like to call that the WMOOC. Okay, what is wisdom? Just to remind ourselves, it is the quality of having experience, knowledge, and good judgment, the quality of being wise. That's what we need, I think, as a human being, before we can, contribute to everything else around us. So WMOOC. WMOOC. And, we can always say, it's about being wise through MOOCs and beyond. Okay? Okay, that's it. Thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions or suggestions, I would like to hear them.
So maybe just one question is allowed, because we are a bit behind the schedule.
One question. Hopefully there's one. Otherwise everybody is hungry and want to go. Okay? None?
Yes.
Okay, please. Yes, please. Yes.
I have a question on, because you're talking about the social presence. So
social presence.
Yeah, if we put the like for example, we combine the Facebook Live and the MOOC together.
Yes.
How is going to be
that will be good.
Yep.
Yes. So social presence is about creating a presence where people are comfortable, people feel that their opinions will be respected. And nowadays, of course, people are comfortable with social media, especially when they want to access through mobile phones. So combining a MOOC platform with social media is one form of creating an increased social presence. Thank you for that comment. All right.
Okay. So thank you very much for your very interesting presentation, Professor Roshani Wati Abbas.
Yep. Thank you.
So I have a few announcements to make. The luncheons will be served in room 203 and also all the rooms opposite the conference room here. And the concurrent sessions will start at 1 p.m. So